Welcome back, AI Explorers. We're excited to jump into a really pertinent topic about the news with OpenAI and the chaos that is ensuing in their organization as it navigates its own creation of AI. So, Jacob, what are you thinking about it so far as we've seen some of this stuff roll out?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm concerned because I want ChatGPT to continue to be a thing. I like the direction the company is going,
I agree.
up until, of course, the firing of Sam Altman, right? And everybody I think has an interest in where artificial intelligence is going. But what's interesting
I
to
agree.
me is so as a lawyer, I'm looking at this and thinking of corporate law and how was this allowed to happen, right? So that's one of the things that I want to talk about is like what the
Yeah.
heck, right? How was this even allowed to happen? You've got people investing billions of dollars and changes like this can be made without notifying them. I mean, and we'll get into all of that, but like the fact that Microsoft doesn't really truly know why Sam Altman was kicked out as CEO is alarming.
Yeah.
And so there should at least be more transparency with, regardless of your corporate structure, there should be more transparency with your partners who are paying you billions of dollars. Um,
Yeah, there's
and
the
go
lack of
ahead.
communication. The lack of
Yeah,
communication, I think, is just stunning because all the rumors that are swirling from crazy things like the total dystopian future that there's a rogue AI that they've created to someone who's got their feelings hurt because they announced something that, potentially impacts their own business,
well, so
who's on
let's
the
talk
board.
about the
So,
prevailing theories. Let's go through one at a time, right? So when this first came out, the vague message from the board was, well, we don't trust him because he wasn't communicating clearly with us. And so a lot of
and yet
people out
they're
there,
and yet they're doing the same thing. We don't trust him because he's not communicating. And it's
and
like,
they're not
okay,
communicating. Well, but the thing is in the lack of like open communication, rumors have abounded. And one of the biggest rumors is, oh no, they created Skynet and we're all going to die, right? Like that's one of the
right,
things
right.
that has been out there. Like Elon Musk is all like, hey, we all have a right to know, which, I think we kind of do at this point. It's one of those
Oh,
things.
I agree. There needs to be a higher level of transparency when it comes to this particular subject because of the subject matter itself, and where people have concerns because we've been fed so many Hollywood horror stories about how the machines will rise up against us. But as we were talking earlier, I like what you said about the robots. There's so few, and right now is the time to make the nefarious AI
Right,
so
right.
that we can tamp it down. And if you're a sci-fi geek and you know about Dune and the Butlerian Jihad, you know that the humans won out in that particular war against the AI. So there's a lot of things, and I agree with your philosophy. Right now is the time to make it the evil villain and figure out
Right.
how to stop it before
We
it
have to
can
figure
be
out how to beat it.
unstoppable.
Like we don't have a critical mass of robots that can go out and actually go rogue and murder us all, right? And so we should
Right.
kind of we should advance and kind of see what it actually is capable of, and during a point in its evolution where we can just go, hey, where's the power button on this thing, right? Like, oh yeah, there it is, off, right? Like, um, and you and I, to prepare for this conversation, we watched some interesting videos, and there
Oh
was
yeah.
an interview that the interim CEO of OpenAI, who was the former CEO of Twitch, and he was on a podcast and talked about how the learning that AI can do accelerates, and eventually it'll have the resources at its disposal where it can turn its learning back on itself, and that loop where it learns increases at a significantly faster rate to the point
Yeah.
that, yeah, I mean, it becomes impossible for us to control. So I think in a way we should kind of figure out what that's like in a controlled environment so that we can control it moving forward.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I completely agree with that. And when he said those statements, I was like, that is a a cause for concern.
Right, right. And so, like, let's talk about that though. Like, this whole idea that, okay, artificial intelligence is so important that there should be clear communication about what's going on. Interestingly, like,
Yes.
that is the corporate structure that was set up. Like, that's why they set up OpenAI's corporate structure the way it is so that it's not influenced by dollars. But at the same time, um, so this leads to theory number two, which is, so, and again, in the absence of an explanation from OpenAI, the only things that are out there are theories, which is that there was a conflict of interest with somebody on the board, and it is about dollars yet again, and so
Yep.
that's why this happened. And I think, frankly, is the more likely explanation of what happened.
Well, like we said earlier, you said, the simplest explanation probably is the explanation. So I kind of lean on that because I don't think we're at the point of sentience for an AI that it can be potentially go rogue. Yes, I mean, if you recall, I don't know, did you see like years ago when Microsoft created their own like chatbot thing and it turned into just a vile entity? They had to pull it down because it was fed so much garbage by the internet that
Right.
that it was just spouting off all sorts of vile things, and they had to pull it. So, where does that intersection of control and making sure it's safe and whatnot go? Where is that point?
Right. So I understand, based on what you're saying, and I think everybody kind of gets it as like this is a revolutionary technology, will probably
Yeah.
change our world, and so yeah,
Oh,
we
it
should
already has.
it already has. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's why we're doing this, but like that's why we should take extra care for how a company like this is run. So I want to pull up a couple of things. So this is the
Yeah.
structure of OpenAI. Um, their corporate structure anyway. And so originally, OpenAI, if you read this is on their about page, right? So it started out in 2015 as a nonprofit, and it
Mm.
raised $130 million in donations to function and run and kind of get to the point where it was. And then it realized like, hey, we can't develop this without additional funds. And so we need to come up with essentially a structure, a corporate form where investors can provide and get a return on their investment in order to raise enough money. And so that's what this talks about. And this is the structure they settled on. And what's interesting is
A
you've got your
public charity. Interesting.
Yeah. So OpenAI Inc.
501c.
is actually a 501c3 nonprofit. And so that means nobody owns it. Okay. Um, and it's only managed by a board of directors. And so it's not about like shareholder control. There's a lot less opportunity for, or in theory, a lot less opportunity for corporate scheming for control of the company. Like when Elon Musk got like, I think it was above a 5% stake in Twitter, it's all like, whoa, right? And those kinds of things cause people to like stand up and take notice. You just can't do that with
Eyebrows are
OpenAI,
raised. Yeah.
the nonprofit. And so it's interesting here, like Microsoft is the only like third party company, non OpenAI owned company that's like I mentioned here. So Microsoft's role is not insubstantial. But you've got this board of directors, they control OpenAI, right? And because that's the controlling the management structure of a nonprofit. And then they own this LLC, and they also have a holding company where that owns this other company where management is invested, where investment is managed, excuse me, and presumably people get a return on their investments, and so it's just fascinating that it's a somewhat complicated structure, and what was overlooked, I think, is that in a very realistic way, this board of directors here, through this entity or as it flows down, can control things like firing the CEO at the drop of a hat, which is exactly
Right.
what they did. And typically, people like investors or even Microsoft are going to have enough sway with the money that they have in the company to say, no, you can't do that. You need to have communicated important decisions like that to us earlier. And that didn't happen in this instance. And so that's how it was allowed to happen is part of this like unique corporate structure.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, full transparency needs to be in this conversation because the nature of this world changing technology.
Right, right. And what's interesting is that, like, I understand the mission. I get that, like, they wanted it to be a nonprofit so that it's not about, the bottom line and the dollars. But at the same time, corporations are built in such a way, and they're not perfect, but they're built in such a way that there's a bit more accountability that's built in. Like, as a lawyer who has advised businesses, I can tell you that there's always a little bit of infighting, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit company. and one of the advantages of the corporate form, like the stock corporation, is that there's just a lot more formality, especially when there's a lot of money involved. And so when you've got investors, particularly Microsoft, who fortunately, they're Microsoft, but all of the other investors that don't show up on this list, they've got to be livid right now because they're looking at their investment going from a $100 billion company to nothing in the course of a week because of a couple of a pair of bad judgment calls.
Yeah. And you talk about the investors, but let's talk about all of the stakeholders and their reaction to this. The stakeholders being the employees and how many people backed up. I mean, 90-ish%. And even some of the board members have backed up Sam Altman and changed their opinion in the votes that they've made. And so there is complete and utter chaos in this story. And we're not given the full information, which is necessary to make these calls.
Which also begs the question, like, if so many of the board members have changed their tune, what's wrong with their structure? Like, I'd need to look at their specific documents to better understand the structure and understand why they can't just vote him back now on a majority basis. Because it seems like the majority of the board is now like, okay, let's bring Sam back. Now, theory one was this whole like, oh no, Sam Altman has been pushing for AGI and now it's going to destroy us all. And that's why we had to fire him. But they've pretty much said that that's not the case. And so the only other like compelling explanation, and again, we want to be careful, like we don't know that this is what it is, but it seems like it comes down to this board member, right? And so this is Adam D'Angelo. He owns Quora, or is the co-founder and CEO of Quora, and had been creating an additional product. If you're not familiar with Quora, it's just a site that asks and answers questions. They'll frequently pop up on Google. Yeah, it's like Reddit. It's very similar. Maybe a little more formal, a little more scholarly in some ways. I don't know.
I would agree with that.
But then he's also been creating this project called Poe. And what's interesting here is it combines feeds from OpenAI, so ChatGPT, and then I think it's also been looping in like Claude through its API. And what's interesting is the GPT functionality, the custom GPTs that are available now through OpenAI that were announced on Dev Day, he's been building that here on Poe. And so the thinking is that some people are saying, one of the rumors out there is, well, Sam Altman announced a direct competitor to this pet project. Yeah. That's potentially lucrative, very lucrative, to this member of the board. And it's interesting. There's been a lot of talk about Ilya Sutskever, who was the chairman of the board, and apparently a man with a big conscience by all accounts. But like we haven't heard anything from this. He's currently a media foil from what we're seeing in some of the rumors. We don't know anything about this guy. But I'd be curious to know, like, all the pieces line up. This seems like a more realistic scenario than the scenario of let me see. This seems like a more realistic scenario than the scenario of they created AGI and it went haywire and started breaking things in the lab or whatever, right?
Yeah, you get that Hollywood movie where suddenly all the equipment comes to life and starts killing employees and.
So this is the platform. I wasn't sharing my screen earlier. I thought I was, but this is Adam D'Angelo. This is his Wikipedia page. So he's a known entity, and like I said, he's the CEO of Quora. And then this is a project that he's been working on called Poe. And again, like I said, it has these GPTs that you can purchase or at least build and have available to you. I don't know if you can purchase them yet, but even if they were purchasable at this point with OpenAI's custom GPTs, it's a direct competitor to this build. And so, it seems like that's likely what happened. And what's unfortunate is this structure that was developed to protect OpenAI from outside influence and conflicts of interests may have caused it so that one or two or a small handful of people here in the board of directors were able to derail a company because of a conflict of interest that may or may not have been disclosed. Whereas if you'd had a typical or regular corporate structure, this wouldn't have happened. It really wouldn't, which is interesting. And then there's the debate, on the other side of that. Well, would it have been more dangerous in the hands of a for-profit company if Microsoft buys and pays for all of the employees? That's what we're looking at. And so, unfortunately, this structure didn't kind of rescue OpenAI, unfortunately.
Yeah. And we're, like you said, we don't know the answers to this. We don't know all that communication because they have been very, I don't know if secretive is the right word, but non-communicative about what they're doing, what they're feeling in this time. And that's human interaction. Emotions are going to rise up to the surface. Your own concerns, your own objectives are going to impact your thought processes. And I think this is the more viable theory rather than an AI gone rogue.
Well, I want to read something from this letter. So this is a letter that a number of employees have provided to the board. And I think now it's been signed on by essentially all of the employees at OpenAI. And they said this. When we all unexpectedly learned of your decision, the leadership team at OpenAI acted swiftly to stabilize the company. And then it says, despite many requests for specific facts for your allegations, you have never provided any written evidence. And they also increasingly realized you were not capable of carrying out your duties and were negotiating in bad faith. And so basically all of the employees, and by the way, all of these are very bright people, right? They're working in the creation of this software and this technology that's, like we've talked about, world changing. They're saying, look, you have not given any explanation. And you and I also discussed how Microsoft, they don't even know what's going on. Like, they have not been provided a valid explanation, which is nuts. And again, this structure allows for that, whereas a corporate structure would not. Like, you'd have to disclose certain things. So this is interesting, though. I mean, this is really strong language. Your actions have made it obvious that you are incapable of overseeing OpenAI.
Yeah, I was amazed at the strength of the language in this. It's like, we have no confidence in your ability to lead this company, period.
We are unable to work for or with people that lack competence, judgment, and care for our mission and employees. I mean, this is a big deal. And so, unfortunately, I mean, I have enjoyed OpenAI, ChatGPT, as have millions of others, right? And so the thing is like, if there's not a lot of ways that this can go at this point. Like, either the board has to resign and bring Sam Altman back, and OpenAI continues with a new and different, updated corporate structure, or OpenAI disappears as a company. Like, it's just not going to survive losing all of its employees.
And that would be really sad, I think, it would just be really sad because a number of people already have integrated this into their workflows, into their personal lives, and it's already become the search engine like Google is now, but in a matter of a couple of months rather than years. People have already adapted this technology to improve their lives.
Right. I mean, and in my law firm, I've already been creating custom GPTs and testing them because it's amazing. Like, it can take in Word documents, customize, modify them, and provide them for download again. And so for my paralegal staff, I've been working up custom GPTs that can accept a document, modify it, and then download it and kind of shorten some of those workflows and repetitive work that my employees have to do. And now it can be done much quicker much more
Yeah.
quickly than before. And now I'm looking at this and saying, well, how long am I going to be able to do this? What platform will I have to switch to? It's not going to be Poe. um, it's
Probably
not.
not.
And so it's concerning. It's just it's a little disappointing, and I hope that
It
they
is
bring it together.
concerning.
I hope the board just resigns and then they just get back to business and keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, because you look at as this story unfolded and how Microsoft is like, oh yeah, come, we will take all comers from OpenAI because they know how intelligent, how ambitious, how ready to create the next horizon, that next event for us globally as a human race. What that
Well,
is going to be.
Well, and they're one of the players that's heavily involved, and they can take a $19 billion hit. I mean, it's nuts, but that's true. I mean,
That's
that's
fair.
really crazy.
Yeah.
Um, Something else I wanted to bring up was just the kind of corporate structure they could go for in the future. Like they've got this, which again I think is a little convoluted, but there are some options. So love Ben and Jerry's ice cream, right? Um, so they're a certified B corporation, and basically a B corporation is just a certified B corporation. It's just a C corp, like a regular corporation. It's probably taxed as a C corporation, but they work with
Okay.
this third party entity that says, oh yeah, we do all these good things. And from my understanding, like Ben and Jerry's hires a lot of people who've been in jail, so they help people kind of get their feet back under them in life, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Ben and
That
Jerry's really
is
is like they're
admirable.
a positive company. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a very great ambition or goal to help others get a leg up. But continue on because
Yeah.
I'm interrupting.
Oh no. But I think that like they're a legitimately they're I imagine they're taxed as a C corporation. I imagine they have shareholders, right? But they've got this kind of extra standard that they've given themselves. You can read more about this kind of B corporation movement here. But what I think is more interesting is just, and I'll read some of this. So Delaware allows you to create what's known as a benefit corporation, a public benefit corporation, which is different from a certified B corporation. And basically all it says is um, in corporate law, there's this idea that you have a fiduciary duty to the shareholders, to the investors, the people who own the company. And so as you direct the activity of the company, you're responsible to the people who invested that money. So you can't make dumb decisions. You can't fire the CEO without any reasonable explanation and not explain yourself. Um, and that's because of this idea of shareholder primacy and this fiduciary duty. What's cool about a public benefit corporation is that you also you still have the fiduciary duty, but combined with that, you are also allowed to consider like the impact of your company on third parties. And so I think that this could probably be a better solution to OpenAI's corporate structure issue is just like, hey, look, let's just make this simpler. let's be responsible to many people, which is going to provide some checks and balances on us so that if we get a board member later who has a conflict of interest, if that's what's happening, and again, we don't know if that's what's happening because they haven't said anything, but if that's what's happening, this seems like a much simpler way to resolve this issue. And I read that when Sam Altman went in to renegotiate over the weekend and say, hey, I'm happy to come back, but we've got to change the corporate structure. I imagine it was all like, look, we're a for-profit company now. That's where we're headed.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality.
Well, and they definitely have to make some changes because the depth charge into the ocean of AI that they unleashed, it just,
Right.
I mean, they killed every form of life around it. And there's concerns that what if 2 months from now they do the same thing? They drop that nuclear bomb into this ecosphere. What is that going to look like? And will people continue to have confidence in that if there's another round of this kind of thing? So I think it's important and imperative that they make some changes in that structure so that this kind of thing doesn't happen. Because as we already stated, this technology we've already adopted it at a high level. This technology has been touted and announced as technology has been most adapted by the most people the quickest.
Right.
And so, we can't have these implosions of the number one and I'm going to say it, the number one company of AI creation right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that this structure, this well-intentioned structure, is fine, but I think OpenAI has outgrown it, and that's normal, right? Like, you grow up as a kid and you have to buy new shoes, right? Like, you have to get new clothes, right? Like, that's just what happens, and so I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's great that we live in a world where we have people who want to make sure that we do this safely. I think that's awesome. And we definitely need to figure that out. I don't think this is the corporate structure to do it, because clearly we've seen how unsafe this corporate structure is, right? And so it needs to change. And I think that that's a pretty valid thing for anybody in the midst of this battle right now has to acknowledge and be honest with themselves and look in the mirror and say, okay, what we're doing has the opportunity to wreak havoc in bad ways. And it, it's fascinating too, because like, if it were frankly any other technology, it probably just wouldn't matter as much, but it's this world changing thing.
Yeah. Imagine if this happened at Microsoft, what would the world be thinking right now? I mean, if
they just fired their CEO and replaced him?
It wouldn't be super noteworthy. It'd be noteworthy. There'd be, articles about it, but it wouldn't be this kind of crazy thing and so many jumping ship.
Right.
In solidarity with the guy that they've come to admire.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I do worry. I worry a little bit that like we've built up this idea of like the super smart, CEO, the super smart billionaire, that kind of thing. And so I worry that there's a little bit of hero worship generally. But to me, when I read the details about how it went down, it just seems like there was, I'm just going to say, a lack of maturity, right? Like, I know that you can be very smart. You can be an excellent computer scientist. But if you've not been in a boardroom before or worked with somebody in a partner breakup, like there are just things you learn from the challenge of doing it. And so, and I've seen clients do it. I've done it. I've had partners leave and come and go from my law firm, and they're not fun conversations. But, it helps you learn how to do it. And this is not it.
Well, the funny thing, why I was kind of sneakery there, is like, the trope of you've been in your mom's basement, so you lack the social skills. Maybe that's a little bit of what's going on. They don't have those social skills to navigate some of these things. I'm kidding. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not.
On all sides, everybody has alleged a lack of communication. And
right.
So clearly somebody's not communicating somewhere. And it takes two to tango. So it's probably more than one person. But hopefully they can get back on track. And frankly, it might just come down to ego, because it's very clear that the only reasonable path forward for the company is for the board to give in to the demands of their own people, right? Like, this is the letter. They're saying, we, the undersigned, may choose to resign from OpenAI. We will take this step eminently unless all current board members resign and the board appoints 2 new lead independent directors, right? Like, that's just the only way forward at this point.
Crazy.
When all of your employees say, we quit, you don't have a company anymore. And so this is, you frankly, they don't have options. This is it. It's just the only thing to talk about now is how that goes down.
Yeah. What is the shakeout of all of this?
Right.
Chaos.
And it's anybody's guess. Guess. Cool. Well, we wanted to talk more about like custom GPTs and other tech, but unfortunately, we had to spend time on this. And I'm sure that that's how they feel over at OpenAI as well.
Right. Those that are still there.
So we will be back next week talking about other AI initiatives. If OpenAI and ChatGPT aren't around anymore, we'll be talking about Claude or Midjourney or something. So
Well,
come back.
we already intended to talk on a number of these platforms as we use them in our own work and tinker with them, because it's fascinating to see what the different models that people are creating. And now that these larger entities have created these things, how many more have already taken that code and that knowledge and built something just as good and maybe even better.
Even better.
We're at this event horizon in our world right now of where that technology can take us, and it's going to be fascinating despite what happens to OpenAI. I personally hope that they stay around because I like their tool, I like what it can do, and I've used it successfully for a number of applications. So
yeah, me too. That's, I guess, the message for anybody who's watching this. We will be back with more next week. We will be talking about some of the other tools that are available out there, unless there's a big change at OpenAI. And even if there is, just so that you're aware that there are other large language models that you can use apart from ChatGPT, apart from Google's Bard. You have options, and we're going to start talking about them. So,
Yep.
All right. Thanks, bro. We'll be back next week.
Always good to talk with you, man.
Yeah. Take it easy.